Hello, dear children. Welcome to Superior English. This is Simi Kaur bringing forth before you the chapter From Flamingo, Deep Water by William Douglas. Children, please listen to the explanation carefully, for in the explanation lie some important questions and their answers. Douglas, a high school teacher in Yakima, after getting tired of teaching, took to pursuing law, in the course of which he met Franklin D. Roosevelt at Yale and became a friend and advisor to him. This chapter, Deep Water, is an excerpt from the book entitled Of Men and Mountains by William O. Douglas. It reveals how, as a young boy, William Douglas nearly drowned in a swimming pool. He talks about his fear of water and how he finally overcame it. So, children, this chapter is about 1. William Douglas's autobiographical account, which makes it interesting and absorbing. 2. It is about his phobia or fear for water and his determination to overcome the phobia. All right, let us set out on the inspirational journey with William Douglas on his ride, Deep Water. It had happened when I was 10 or 11 years old. I had decided to learn to swim. There was a pool at the Y.M.C.A. in Yakima that offered the opportunity. So the author, then a 10 or 11-year-old boy, had decided to learn to swim in the pool of Y.M.C.A. What is the full form of the abbreviation Y.M.C.A.? It is Young Men's Christian Association in Yakima. Where is Yakima? It is a city in Washington, US. Though he could learn swimming in the Yakima River also, but the river he believed was treacherous. What is the meaning of the word treacherous? Dangerous, unsafe. And the author's mother warned him not to go for swimming in that river, as there were cases of drowning in that river. So the author opted for the YMCA pool, which he assumed was pretty safe, 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end, 9 feet deep at the other, but the drop was gradual. To learn swimming is not something unusual. But what was strange and unusual was the author's fear and terror for water. Why did he fear water? What had developed terror in the author's mind for water? This was when the author was 3 or 4 years old and was surfing with his father in a beach in California when the waves knocked him down and swept over him. He was buried in water, breathless and frightened. His father laughed, but he was terror stricken at the powerful force of the waves. So, after coming to the YMCA swimming pool, those unpleasant memories were revived, and the childish fears rose. But he tried to push them aside and tried to join the other children in swimming when the misadventure happened. Here, children, I must explain to you the difference between adventure and misadventure. Adventure is an exciting or a daring activity, while misadventure is an unfortunate incident, a tragedy, or a disaster. So, here a misadventure took place. So, what was the misadventure? One day, Douglas was sitting on the side of the pool waiting for the other children to come, when an 18-year-old, strong, sturdy, muscular boy came near him and said, "Hi, Skinny, how would you like to be ducked?" Meaning, how would it feel to you if I push you or plunge you into the water? And with this, he picked him and tossed him into the deep end of the swimming pool. And what was the depth of the deep end, children? 9 feet, which was pretty dangerous for a 10-year-old boy who did not know how to swim. Terrified, William started going inside. Those 9 feet seemed 90 feet, and before he touched the bottom, his lungs were ready to burst. Those 9 feet seemed 90 because he was terrified. Terrified that he was drowning, terrified that he did not know swimming. The deeper he went, the water pressure kept on increasing, and he kept gasping for breath. But could he breathe inside? No. So the lungs were unnaturally stopped from performing their biological function. As a result, he felt that his lungs were going to burst. And when his feet touched the bottom, he gathered all his strength to jump upwards, but instead came up slowly. He opened his eyes and saw nothing but water. He struggled to grab a rope, but his hands caught of only water. He was suffocating, tried to yell, to shout, to scream, but no sound came out of his mouth. He moved desperately, miserably, and hopelessly trying to bring his legs up, but they seemed paralyzed. And oh no! What was this? He was going down the pool again. While moving down, he used his entire strength to fight with water, which left him breathless. His lungs ached. His heart throbbed. He felt dizzy. Suddenly he remembered that he should lie flat on the water, strike out his arms, and thrash his legs. Then he would probably be driven to the edge of the pool and be safe. But no, he went down and down and could see nothing but water. And then sheer stark terror seized me. Terror that knows no understanding, terror that knows no control. I was paralyzed. Even the screams in my throat were frozen. Only my heart and the pounding in my head said that I was still alive. And then, in the midst of the terror, came a touch of reason that he must remember to jump when he hit the bottom. At last, he felt the tiles under him. He jumped with all his strength, but the jump made no difference. He looked for ropes, ladders, water wings, but could see only and only water. And suddenly, from the darkness, he saw light. He was coming out of the awful water. His eyes and nose were out too. But this happiness was short lived. Alas, he was going down again. This was the third time he was going down. He desperately tried to breathe air, but he gulped only water. Then suddenly he felt very peaceful, very calm, felt no need to struggle with water, no terror, no panic. Somebody carrying him gently. He was floating in space. What was this happening to the young Douglas? Choked and suffocated, Douglas was moving towards death. That's how he says, I crossed to oblivion, and the curtain of life fell. Oblivion means unconsciousness. He went into unconsciousness and blankness. The next he remembers, he was lying on his stomach beside the pool, vomiting. The chap who threw him in was saying, But I was only fooling. This incident left a deep mark in the young Douglas's mind. It was a complete nightmare and a close encounter with death. He never went back to the pool. But any phobia, fear, or terror can ruin our opportunities of joy, excitement, adventure, and achievement. The same happened with the writer William Douglas. The fear and terror would overpower him whenever he would get into the water of Cascade. Cascade is a waterfall. Or wade the Titan or bumping river, or was bathing in the warm lake of the Goat Rocks. So this terror would haunt him. whenever he used to swim in these lakes or rivers. The terror would return. His legs would become paralyzed and horror would grab him. It ruined him of his fishing trips and deprived him of the joys of canoeing, boating, and swimming. Finally, one day, one day he decided that he would have to overcome this fear, come what may. So one October, he decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. So now, children, we are going to learn as to how William Douglas learned to conquer his fear of water and emerge victorious. How did the instructor make him learn swimming? Douglas went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around him. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope and they went back and forth across the pool, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. After this, the instructor taught Douglas to put his face underwater and exhale, and to raise his nose and inhale. Douglas repeated this exercise hundreds of times. Next, the instructor held him at the side of the pool and made him kick with his legs for several weeks. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer out of Douglas. And when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. What is the meaning of this line, children? The instructor taught all the steps to Douglas necessary to be a swimmer. First, he taught him to go back and forth in the water. Then, he taught him to inhale above water and exhale underwater. Then, for the efficiency of the leg movement, he held him at the side of the pool and made him kick with his legs. Thus, he perfected each step to make a swimmer out of Douglas. Every step had to be perfected because in swimming, all the steps had to be taken simultaneously in synchronization. Like in a puzzle, we have to put all the parts in the right manner and right place to make a picture or sense out of it. Similarly, in swimming, all the steps go together for swimming to take place. Finally, one day the instructor said, "Now you can swim. Dive off and swim the length of the pool. Crawl and stroke." I did. I did. The instructor was finished, but I was not finished. What is the meaning of this important line? The instructor was finished, but I was not finished. It means the instructor had done his job, that of making the writer learn swimming, but the student was not sure whether he could swim all alone without any terror or fear looming in him. The real test was to begin now, the test of conquering fear, fear of water. He started swimming the length up and down. Tiny impression of terror would return, would haunt, but he would frown and tease the terror. Trying to scare me, eh? Well, here is this to you. Look, and off he would go for another length of the pool. To test himself further, he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived off a dock at Triggs Island, and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. All these are situated in US. When he was in the middle of the lake, he put his face under the water. He saw nothing but bottomless water. The old sensation returned. The old fear and terror returned. He laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" The terror fled and he swam on. Still, the writer was not convinced. He had some doubts. So, on the first opportune moment, he went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to Mead Glacier, and camped in the high meadow by the side of the warm lake. The next morning, he dived into the lake and swam across to the other shore and back. It was a huge success, children. Huge success for the writer. One who had so much of fear for water had now succeeded to conquer it. Happy, elated beyond words, he shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. Finally, Douglas had conquered his fear of water. Aptly said, "Where there is will, there is a way." The writer believes that this experience had a deep meaning for him, and only those people who had experienced such terror and suffered could appreciate and value the efforts put by Douglas to overcome them. William Douglas sums up his experience very profoundly by saying, "In death there is peace. There is terror only in the fear of death." Meaning, the terror which had filled the writer's mind in the pool when he was breathless, choked, and suffocated, that he was dying, the feeling was horrifying. But when he was actually dying, he felt very peaceful and calm. That is why he says, "In death, there is peace. There is terror and panic only in the fear of death." Franklin Roosevelt, the then President of America, who was closely acquainted with the writer, summed up the experience in these words: "All we have to fear is fear itself." Meaning, fear paralyzes our physical and mental ability, the ability to think logically and rationally, the ability to achieve and enjoy. When in the pool of YMCA, probably Probably a calm Douglas could come to the surface, but he was so nervous, so tensed, and anxiety stricken that he just fought and struggled with water, thereby ending his chances of coming onto the surface of the pool. Again, he already had an aversion or hatred for water before he took to swimming in the YMCA pool. As you can read in the first para, page 25, "From the beginning, however, I had an aversion to the water when I was in it." So, with preconceived notions or fear, one cannot expect positive results. So, children, both the quotations, that of the writer and the president, are noteworthy and therefore important. So, lap up their explanation. All is well that ends well. A fearless Douglas could now walk the trails and climb the peaks. Now, children, let's resolve the important questions. Please note that I will not repeat the questions which I have put in my explanation. It will be a wastage of time. The rest are as follows. Question number 1. Justify the title Deep Water, 3 marks. Answer. William Douglas had an aquaphobia. What is aquaphobia? Phobia or fear for water. Because of an incident in California beach when the huge waves knocked him down while surfing. This fear took deeper roots when a bully pushed him inside the deep end of the YMCA pool, where he struggled to come out but could not. Finally, he was taken out, and later he is determined to overcome this fear of water, hires an instructor, learns swimming, and swims in different lakes and rivers, and finally overcomes the deep rooted fear of deep water. Question number 2. Why did Douglas's mother recommend that he should learn swimming at the YMCA pool? 3 marks. Answer. The YMCA pool was safe. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end, and while it was 9 feet deep at the other, the drop was gradual. Since the writer was a 10-year-old boy and keen to learn swimming, the pool would have been better than the Yakima River, which was very unsafe. Question number 3. What was the misadventure that happened one day? 2 marks. This question contains 2 marks, so you have to be short and precise, children. Answer. One day, by the side of the pool, Douglas was waiting for others to come to start swimming when a bully came and pushed him into the deep end of the pool. Douglas, who did not know swimming, was terrified. He was choked and suffocated, felt dizzy and throat frozen, his lungs as if going to burst. The third time, when he was going down, he felt he was moving towards death. So, definitely, this was a misadventure. Question number 4. What was the effect of Douglas's near brush with death? Or, in what manner did the misadventure in the YMCA pool haunt Douglas? Or, how did the experience in the YMCA pool left Douglas with a deep rooted aversion or hatred for water? 2 marks. Answer. The experience left young Douglas completely terrorized, so much so that the remembrance of the incident would make him wobbly in the knees and give him a sick feeling in his stomach. Later, whenever he was in the water of Cascades, or wading in the Titan River, or bathing in the warm lake, the terror would seize him, grab him, and he would be horrifically paralyzed. It ruined his fishing trips, deprived him of the joys of canoeing, boating, and swimming. This brings us to the end of the session, children. A powerful message is conveyed to you through this lesson, and that is all we have to fear is fear itself. Do not let fear come in the way of achieving your goal. There is a difference between being fearless and foolishly adventurous. Do not confuse the two. So, children, for any doubts, queries, do log on to my Facebook page, Superior English. Of course, the comment section and my email ID, simicorarora@gmail.com, stands operational for this purpose too. Last but not the least, do like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much.